just sitting there and I got my Jimmy John's that got delivered ahead of time. It's sitting there on the table and you're just kind of like, this is going to be like a waste of time. And all the walls are kind of like, it doesn't look like they have $250,000 to give me.
You are listening to The Deal Breakdown with Derek Shebby, where we spotlight the best deals out there in B2B sales, from the open all the way to the close. Welcome to the B2B Deal Breakdown podcast, where we give you the play-by-play on some of the best deals out there. I'm Derek Shebby, and I'm excited to be meeting with Christian Haerens. He's an area sales manager in the medical device industry. Welcome, Christian.
Thanks, Derek.
So excited to have you on this and share all these deals you've been closing with the rest of the B2B sales world out there. So let's get right into it, though. Could you tell the listeners a little bit about your background?
Sure. Derek, I appreciate you having me on your show. I have been in B2B sales for my entire career in sales, but I've been in specifically medical device industry the last 5 years, and really enjoyed it. I'm specifically in the device part of the medical world that is cash-based. So I work with plastic surgeons, dermatologists, and I sell equipment that is not necessarily needed in insurance, but paid for cash-based pay. So elective.
That's great. How many years would you say total you've been in B2B?
Well, in my entire career, so 10 years.
10 years?
Yeah.
Wow, time flies, man.
Yeah.
The company you're with now, who is the company?
The company is called BTL. We have a product. It's kind of our flagship product. It's the hottest thing in aesthetics, I guess, that you would talk about. It's called the M Sculpt. It's like doing 20,000 sit-ups in 30 minutes.
What?
It's pretty fantastic. Yeah, it builds muscle and kills fat.
That's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I guess with that M Sculpt, what challenges? Why would a plastic surgeon or one of those people want to get that?
Sure. Well, it comes down to the mighty dollar, I guess. There's a little bit of a perfect storm right now in our country and LA, Orange County, where people haven't been able to go to the gyms. So we've been able to create a lot of urgency with some of these practices that maybe we're thinking about buying, but aren't kind of leery because of the way the economy is, by creating what we call a medical gym membership. So, hey, people can't go to the gyms. They're getting fluffy. So they're actually wanting to spend money to get themselves back into shape and to get to feeling better, to feeling stronger again. So there's a lot of just a market opportunity there. And then there's other ways that people other than plastic surgeons, dermatologists can utilize it in their practice. And tap into, a lot of different markets where you have potentially your younger generation that might be an influencer or just want that little extra edge. They're already in shape, but they have a little bit of a problem area. And then you also have your older generation that might be using a walker and they have literally no core strength at all. And they don't really have the ability to work out, or they have a potential of getting injured. So they would definitely benefit from that kind of a treatment to be able to create some strength in their body without having to, risk injuring themselves, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of a market pull that way. So we create that sort of, number one, urgency, but also the market, just to prove that there's a market across the gamut of everyone from your younger generation, your older generation. So if that answers your question, Derek.
Yeah. So I'm trying to picture this thing because the only thing I can think of right now is I think it was the movie Dragon with the Bruce Lee story where he's got these machines on his arms to help him feel like he's doing push-ups. But what is this like? How does this machine work? Or
it's similar to that. It's almost like a paddle. It has 2 Tesla magnets in it. The owner of our company is actually close with Elon Musk, so a lot of our just branding and like aesthetically, just if you look at the device itself, is very Tesla-esque. It looks like that, but the Tesla magnets actually click together, and what it does is actually forces the motor neurons in your muscles to contract, and to contract at a rate that your body can't literally do. Like it bypasses your brain telling you you can't do this anymore. Body forces your muscles to contract. Most people use it on their abs, but you can use it on your arms, triceps, biceps. You can use it on your quads, your hamstrings, your calves, your butt. Girls kind of like the butt thing, like the having it on the butt, because it rounds, lifts, and actually plumps the butt. So like it or not, that's a very appealing result for a patient that, like it or not. But the age of Instagram, everybody wants like the Kim Kardashian kind of like shelf butt that, so it's a very that's a pretty appealing part of our like patients are going after that. So
it sounds it's cool technology, by the way, medical device.
It's fun. Yeah. It's fun to talk about for sure.
Yeah. So this particular deal you're going to share with us today, why'd you choose this one out of all the, I know you closed so many deals over the years.
Yeah. I think this one kind of went really quick. I'm going to just talk about this one specifically because sometimes you've been doing sales a long time. It's very easy to lean into what you would say, this is a good opportunity, this is a bad opportunity, this is a good opportunity, and just being very matter of fact with it, trying to take the emotion out of it. But also really understanding we have to adapt with the economy and the way that buyers are looking at buying equipment or buying anything really, especially right now. It's just different. So I'm following every lead a little differently, and I'm looking at my potential opportunities a little bit differently, knowing the economy. So where my quota was maybe double what it was last year, it's half of that this year. And also the buyers are just a little bit different. They're more nervous. There's a little bit more objections that they might give you. So what I have appreciated was I'm looking at a lot of my potential leads differently than I was in the past. And I have to be a little bit like nimble and have a little bit more finesse with some of these deals now than I would before, where I would just cut them off and be like, this guy's not a buyer and I don't want to waste my time. This guy's not a buyer. I don't want to waste my time. This deal was one of those that I probably would have just cut off if it wasn't COVID time and the economy wasn't where it was at. But what it resulted was I had a 2-day close on this deal, all cash, which is weird in our industry because most people finance their equipment. I think, if I wasn't in COVID time, I probably wouldn't have dug in deeper on this particular deal, but we have to be a little bit more creative right now. So yeah, that's the reason I picked this one. And it could be beneficial for some of your listeners, or just to kind of hear about how I looked at it. I think, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. So what size deal are we talking about here in terms of like your quota?
Yeah, so this is half my quota, which I have a $500,000 quota a quarter, and this one ended up being $250,000 deal that I closed in 2 days. So that was literally half my quota on a prospect that I probably wouldn't have dug into, like I mentioned, if we weren't in the economy and in this kind of climate that we're in right now. So
very, very cool. So half of your quarterly budget in 2 days.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So which is great.
So how'd you find this account in the first place? I mean, was it like in a CRM or was it an inbound lead? Was it cold calling? How'd you find it?
Totally cold calling. Obviously, we do a ton of research on the people that buy this equipment. We call on certain specialties. I have a TM, which is territory manager. It's kind of like a junior rep that sets meetings, but we make sure that we're qualifying them pretty well on the front end. So this is an OBGYN practice in Arizona. And I'm covering 2 states right now. So when we go out to Arizona, we want to make sure that our time is really spent really well. So we're back-to-back meetings. We'll do like 20 meetings a day. I mean, between the 3 of us, there's 3 of us, so 2 junior reps. And then we'll run, as many meetings as we possibly can. So we're just banging out the calls on the front end to just set meetings. Really, that's all it is on the front end, is setting meetings with what we think could potentially be a qualified buyer. And that's just through research on understanding the market. So, hey, this is a plastic surgeon, this is a dermatologist. They usually buy equipment, or maybe they're an OBGYN and they buy aesthetic equipment because they're, supplementing their insurance income as well. And there's other practices that do that well too. So family practices as well, like that. So this one just happened to be an OBGYN. So Anyway, we set the meeting. Sometimes you have to bring in a lunch, which I hate to do because I'm not a pharma rep. And, sometimes you don't even get time with the doctor. You bring in this lunch, I get it delivered, and you just kind of think, oh man, I'm bringing in a lunch. I just spent, $80 to bring them Jimmy John's or something,
Yeah.
So maybe not always the best, attitude to have, but you never know what it's going to turn into.
Yeah.
So we bought him lunch, and that was so initial meeting, one meeting, hey, talking about the product, seeing if there's an opportunity. We already knew they did some sort of aesthetics, so they have a cash-based side of their business. So I'm coming in and pitching, talking about what we're doing, and then asking a lot of questions. So the three things that I like to hit on are, number one, the market opportunity, which we talked about a little bit. Number two, the company, right? Like if you're going to partner with a company, you want to make sure that the company is good, and then number three, the technology, right? So market opportunity, company, and technology. So those three things, like they got to believe that there's a market for this. They got to believe that the company is going to be around and that they're going to help them. They're going to support them. And then they got to believe that the technology actually works. So those three things are just really, really important. And those are the three things I just want to hammer home. And I do that by asking just a lot of questions, and getting them engaged. So,
well, can we pause there? Can we pause there? So,
yeah.
So on this meeting, I mean, were there, I guess, how did they agree to this meeting? Like what was the pitch over the phone to get them to say, let's meet? Even though you had to sell lunch too with it, but like, what was the pitch there?
Yeah. And usually you got to get creative, because a lot of these aesthetic practices are getting, 5-10 people calling a day, trying to book lunches or book meetings with them. So we'll be really creative. Like I'm calling on a OBGYN. I'll say, hey, this is, Christian, I'm your women's health rep. Don't like to say, specifically the name of the company unless they ask, and then you'll say it, right? But I say, I'm your women's health rep. I'd like to get 15 minutes with the doctor. I try to get him to just kind of like joke around on the phone a little bit, just to disarm him. Might chuckle a little bit, like, oh, congratulations, everybody, you made it to Friday, or something just silly like that. Or I'm going to bring you guys mimosas or something. I'm like, oh, I don't think they'll let me do that, just to get him to kind of book a meeting with you. Sometimes that works, sometimes it just depends on who you're calling on, but Arizona is pretty friendly. So I just said, hey, I always go for the morning meeting. And then if they can't do a morning, then I say, okay, how about a lunch? And then that's when I take the lunch as the second move. So this one pushed back on the morning meeting, said they had a busy schedule, so they went to the lunch. In order for our doctor to meet with reps, you have to bring in lunch. Okay, no problem. 12 o'clock or 12:30 work for you. So that's sort of how we booked it. How many people, any food allergies? So it's just five people. If it's over 10, I'm like, oh man, I usually don't do them. But it depends. It just depends on the nature of it, especially right now, like with what I mentioned with the climate of the world. I just got to make sure that we're calling on everybody, because you never know who the buyer is. And specifically in this case, I didn't know this was going to happen. Right. So hopefully that answered your question.
No, you did. Yeah. So you're at this meeting now. Was there any sort of opportunity that you found from the customer when you were asking these questions that said, oh, there's a good chance, the good opportunity? What did you find from the customer?
Yeah, so I was drilling down a lot. It's weird because they sat me in the kitchen, and sometimes, in sales, it's sometimes just a little like demeaning, right? Like you're like, I'm in the kitchen. There's people walking by. We're all wearing masks too, which is already just like a little weird. Yeah. And so, I'm just sitting there, and I got my Jimmy John's that got delivered ahead of time. It's sitting there on the table, and you're just kind of like, this is going to be like a waste of time. And all the walls are kind of like it doesn't look like they have a lot. They have $250,000 to give me. Right. It looks like they're like just kind of struggling to make ends meet, but you never know. Right. So, I'm in there, a nurse comes in, starts talking to me, tell me what you got. Like, I'd like to hear about what you think. So I'm asking her questions about their aesthetic side of the practice, and then specific to their target market with women, which is a very huge target market with us. We also have another device that is for urinary incontinence, which is pretty popular with OBGYN clinics. A lot of women struggle with that if they've had kids or, as they get older, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very cool product that we have that doesn't require surgery, that actually partners with that M-Sculpt that I talked to you. It's the same technology. So I was just talking about it and then drilling down on it a little bit. And then the owner came in, her name's Jo, the owner came in and she's like, I saw this product a year ago and I was really intrigued, and I have another OBGYN in town that bought it, and they're very successful with it. So I'd like to hear more, all these things. And she's like, I'm not trying to get too excited, but this is something I've been wanting to bring on for quite a while.
Wow.
And
And you
so
didn't know that.
usually,
And you didn't know that. You're
no, I
just
had
going
no
in there.
idea. Yeah.
You had no idea that they knew anything about it. You just went in there like it's another place, and you
Yep.
get a comment like that from the owner or from the head OBGYN. You're thinking, wait, what just happened?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
And that's pretty exciting. And doing this long enough, like, I always go when they're getting really pumped. I said, okay, listen, I'm going to put numbers together for you, and I'm going to bring them back, and then we'll have a conversation, but I need some information from you. And then I go for the credit application, right? Because I just want to make sure they have good enough credit so they can buy it. It's like you wouldn't test drive a Ferrari if you don't make the money to buy one, right? Kind of thing, like, right? We just want to make sure that we're on the same page. So this is kind of where it went in a different direction. And basically she says, my son, since all this COVID thing happened, my son is the CEO of the company, and he actually saw this opportunity to start testing sites for COVID. And we have about 18 now, and we're crushing it. We have a patient base of about 200,000 people throughout the state of Arizona. And so I'm hearing that, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. So that means that you're making some money, because the insurance reimbursement on that's significant.
Sure.
And the fact that they have that many locations in a short period of time was cool. So the next thing I go for is a demo, because I want them to feel the technology. It's a very simple product to demo. And I was only been in town for 2 days. So I'm like, hey, why don't I come back tomorrow, and I'll come and demo it? And she's like, how about you come back tonight? Because my son will be here, and the COO, and I'd love for them to be able to try the technology as well, and to meet you and to hear about the company, et cetera. So that's a good thing. So I went for the credit app, got the credit app, and then set the meeting for later on that evening, which would be, I don't know, 4:30 or something, kind of like at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then just got the equipment and was ready to go in and do that. So, but I took the credit app. So here's where it kind of takes a weird little twist. I put it in the back of my mind that, like, okay, we have 18 locations. We have 200,000 patient base. And so I just heard that, but I took the credit app, went back, got a soft pull on her credit. She's got terrible credit, right? Like the sometimes this happens, like, and so if that happens, usually I'll just be like, all right, hey, it was nice meeting you. I appreciate it. But we're going to kind of part ways, like, and maybe down the road, unfortunately, just not in a mean way, but just knowing that, hey, like, we go where the gold is, we go where the opportunity is. And that's probably not a good place to be. So, so when I got that information, I was like, this is probably going to be a little bit of a waste of my time. And I had kind of two options. Like, either I could just tell them, like, hey, unfortunately, we did some, our homework, and we're just not going to be moving forward. And I have another meeting, et cetera, et cetera. But let's follow up. We'll invite you to an event down the road, something like that, just to kind of keep them there, like on a drip campaign, but knowing that they weren't like a real buyer. But then I realized, I'm like, these guys have cash because they've been doing well, and it hasn't been only for a short period of time. So I just kind of followed through, and, came to the meeting, created a lot of rapport, just kept building rapport with the team, and then hit those three things home, asked a lot of questions. And then we just got into the negotiations. So I don't know if I'm going too fast or.
No, this is great. So I guess in the demo, because I understand what you're saying. I mean, when we're constantly in B2B sales qualifying people in, we're qualifying them out. And credit, typically, if someone doesn't pass credit, and I know we dealt with this back in the day, Christian, it's nothing any different. It's like, if they can't pass credit, then unless they've got a big, they got money sitting under their mattress somewhere that they can use to pay for it. What do you got? You got nothing.
Yeah.
So you're looking at qualifying your time. You're thinking, am I going to stay out here in Arizona? Because I don't even think you live in Arizona. Are you going to stay out here for the evening to go to this meeting for this account that can't even buy it if they wanted to, and they, where are they going to get the money? And so I can see that what's going on in your brain about, what should I do? I could get home right now, right? Or I could stay the rest of the day, and this would be wasting my time. But you decided to stay, and And when you did the demo, so did anything big happen in the demo that you remember looking back on and said, wow, this demo really landed for these guys, like solidified it? Tell me about that.
Yeah, there's a wow factor. I don't like demoing. It's kind of a pain. You have to bring in the equipment, and like sometimes the people just, there's so many factors that come into play that aren't in your favor or could be thrown off of the sales process for you getting to the point where they can come up with like, oh, it hurts or whatever, like just silly things like that, or but our product demos really, really well. So I knew that, like, okay, when you always go to the demo, because I know our product demo is really good. And you don't have to use numbing cream, or you don't have to use, like, there's not this whole huge thing that you have to do, so it's pretty simple. So I just got them jacked on the demo. I got them excited, all of them. So I demoed the CEO and the COO, and then the owner. I demoed all of them at the same time. Like, I was just kind of running around. We can do 2 patients at the same time. So I had both of them going, talking about it. And then I have like multiple videos going on. So getting the excitement going. We have a lot of celebrities that endorse our product. And I have little clips of those celebrities talking about it or getting the product, and they were just getting excited about it. They saw like the opportunity. Then we sell them on the ROI. So talking about the excitement, they're getting excited about the opportunity. They're saying, wow, this is really cool. This is really cool. There's so many things. There's all this marketing. It's exciting. We could do this. We could sell this. We could do this. Like, they're believing in themselves. And then I go to the ROI, which is, okay, here's the money that you can make on bringing this equipment on. Like, yes, I know that this equipment is expensive, but expensive compared to what? Because spending this money, $250,000 or $250,000 is like what? Like $6,000 on a loan. So let's call it $6,000 a month. And then we just kind of break it down from there. And then it just became like tangible for the prospect. Like, oh, okay. So now it's like, okay, that's real. And it's really only 2 to 3 patients a month to cover my complete cost. And we now have a patient base of 200,000 people that we can market to. So it's like exciting, right?
Yeah.
And then it just came down to, all right, well, listen, like, are you planning on financing this? Or like, just those really hard questions, like, how do you typically buy equipment? And they're like, well, we've financed it in the past. And I basically, in a nice way, said, well, that's not going to happen this time. Like, no one's going to loan you money, especially with the climate we're in a nice way. Right.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, how about we just put this is like the fun things that we talk about at sales. Like, when you get the win, it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, you're like, oh yeah. He's like, can we just put it on my Amex? Like, is that cool? And I was like, well, we're all in this together. So I said, I would just have to get that approved. But they're going to want to know, like, number one, are you serious? Can you do this today? Right. Cause you got to continue to sell and get buy-in rather than just like getting excited and then number 2, like, would you take delivery and actually move forward with it now? Like, this would have to happen now. If they approved it, the only way they're going to approve it is if it happens right now. And I'll take it back. And if I get the approval, I can run it and we're good. Knowing that I know my numbers, I know my margins, and I have it good. So that's sort of how it went down. And I need a signed contract. I need the credit card slip. I need everything in order for me to get that approval. And you're willing to move forward at that price that we just negotiated. And they said, yeah, absolutely. No joke. Let's go. So I'm sitting there like, wow, that's rare,
Yeah.
It's just like, it's not usually that easy. Number one, it has to do a lot to do with the product, because it's a great product. And then number 2, I feel like, whereas a lot of salespeople probably would have just like been like, nah, these guys are a waste of time. Like, let's move on. It's just listening to your customer, your prospect, your potential customer, and figuring out, like, can they do this? Is this actually something that they could potentially do? And me hearing that, like, they're making money, right? I know that this is happening, and I know they're very interested. So I might just have to put myself in the right place, the right time, where it's not a typical scenario, but there could be a possibility there, and it ended up working out. So I keep mentioning this, but with the climate we're in, it's like following those leads that maybe don't look like that great, that end up potentially being solid gold. And I already know they're going to buy like 3 or 4 pieces of equipment from me moving forward, just because they're those kind of people. And, and then you build the relationship and you just win for them. And then they end up doing business with you for a long time. So
absolutely. It sounds like you mentioned a lot of things about things that won the deal for you and things that you do differently next time. But what about any final words of wisdom? Just think about just the B2B salesperson, like you mentioned, in this client or in this climate or in general, that are trying to be successful in sales. What sort of wisdom would you like to share with the audience there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think 2 things. The biggest thing I learned coming from working at Xerox, I was working at Xerox selling copiers. When anybody met with me at Xerox, I kind of felt like they were interested, because they're getting called on by like 6 or 7 technology companies a day, like just hammered, right? So if they sit down with you, there's probably a potential that they're interested. When I came into medical aesthetics, it's different. These doctors will meet with you forever. They'll let you take them out to dinner. They'll let you buy them all this stuff, and they'll let you wine and dine them or whatever, right? But they're never interested in buying anything ever. They just want to waste your time, and they want to learn about what's new out there. So that was a hard transition for me, because the hardest part was really finding out if these guys were wasting my time, and really, I'd say just getting into sales, actually qualifying them as fast as possible and being as brutally honest as you possibly can with yourself and with them, and trying to take the emotion out of it. That's sometimes hard when you get into the weeds on these deals. But the 2 things are just qualify to the point where it drives you nuts, and take the emotion out of it with sales, and then numbers. That's with everything. Use the volume in your favor. So 3 things, I guess. No, absolutely. What you're saying right here, it's very powerful. And I love saying that, try to take the emotion out of it, even though it's tough. It's really tough, because you get you get so passionate and so, connected. But if you look at it as, you try to keep the logic in there, and you be strategic, and what makes the most sense for your time, then you're going to make the better decision. So this is great. If people want to reach out to you, Christian, just maybe learn more from you, or connect with you, or even ask more about this amazing product that you sell, how would you recommend them doing that? Yeah, you can shoot me an email. It's chaerens@gmail.com. That's my personal email, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Christian Haerens. Reach out. Let's connect. I love making connections, and absolutely. Well, hey, Christian, thanks so much for being on the show today. This deal, I know this went fast, but this has been a really cool deal to hear about. So thanks so much for being on. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it, Derek. Well, that's it for today's session, everybody. Thank you so much, Christian, for helping all of our fellow B2B salespeople out there improve their sales skills. And for our listeners, if you'd like today's highlights, be sure to check out our summary on modernSalesTraining.com. Have a great sales week, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Hey, did you know I just finished a new course? It's called Virtual Selling Machine. I'm pretty proud of it, because it will help you dominate the B2B sales world working from home. I go over everything from building your digital brand online to understanding how to best tailor your message to your customers, prospecting from home, running effective meetings over Zoom, doing amazing demos over webinar, and more. It's all packed into a 4-hour course, but I want to hook you up with 1 hour of it for free, no strings attached. Just go to www.modernSalesTraining.com/free. That's www.modernSalesTraining.com/free. Go check it out now and become a virtual selling machine.